In 2019, I was in a mastermind group complaining about a handful of clients that I was having a very hard time working with. And this was a group run by Seth Godin, the father of modern marketing, someone a hero of mine. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, "Brian, you're self-employed. You get to choose your clients. Why would you choose clients who are difficult to work with or can't afford your fees?" And it broke my brain because at this time I had been self-employed for 15 years. It had never occurred to me that instead of clients choosing me, I could choose them. Like it just instantly solved basically every problem I was having. Not actually in that moment, but conceptually. That is the power of a paradigm shift. So event planners and meeting professionals, they all want to create change for their attendees, right? But we as speakers, we have a limited amount of time, and particularly as keynote speakers, you get 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour at most. And here's the thing. If nothing changes as a result of your speech, if the audience, if the listeners, if the attendees, if they don't do anything different as a result of your speech, you will be seen as a nice to have at best or a complete failure at worst. So how do we as speakers create lasting change, but in such a short period of time? By the way, hi, I'm Brian Miller. I've spoken on over 300 stages across 5 continents. I've delivered a viral TEDx talk with 3.5 million views, and I founded a consulting firm that teaches experts how to deliver thought leadership style speeches, for which we recently won 3 prestigious international awards. So as a speaker, I've lived it, I've taught it, and in this video, we're talking about how to create lasting change as a keynote speaker. All right, so what do most speakers do, right? Well, most speakers, me included, we naturally think in terms of solutions. We have like proprietary methodologies and we have tactics and hacks. We have things that people can do. And we get really excited about these things because it feels like the way to create change, right? But the problem with tactics is they tend to be industry specific or context specific, right? So like a tactic that works for magicians is unlikely to work the same way for nurses, right? Because the industry and the context are just so very different. A tactic that would be useful to a magician would not be useful to a nurse. But also, tactics tend to stop working due to external factors, like folks who teach LinkedIn, sales tactics. They'll tell you, oh, you got to put the link in the comment, not in the post, because LinkedIn's algorithm is punishing people who put links in the thing. And then LinkedIn changes their algorithm, and now this tactic is completely useless. And if you just built an entire program, or if you ran a webinar or workshop or whatever it was, trying to convince people to put the link in the comments instead of in the post, this is now irrelevant, right? But also not just, algorithms change, culture changes, right? As time moves on, things change, like consumer trust right now is at historic lows. And so in a world where consumer trust is very low, the stuff that worked for Instagram life coaches 10 years ago is not working anymore. Folks running coaching and consulting businesses online are having a very hard time of it lately doing lead generation because the tactics that they were taught that they built their businesses on, the tactics like run a webinar, say this thing, those don't work anymore because people don't trust the way that they used to, in large part because they got burned by so many people doing stuff like that. But in any regard, speakers, we tend to think in solutions. And so, as I say, these solutions are things to do. They are tactics, but they tend to stop working due to external factors or cultural changes. In an effort to deliver value, like you're a speaker, you want to deliver value, right? I want to deliver value. I want the audience to get so much out of this. So we tend to do information overload, right? Like we're trying to deliver value, so we just throw dozens of tips and tricks and tactics at them. But you know the same thing that I know. When you're in the audience listening to someone, you tap out very quickly. There's only so much that you can remember at any given time. And psychologists will tell you that the average human can remember between 5 and 9 things at a time. But you're not the only thing happening in their head, right? Don't take that to mean I can deliver 9 new pieces of information that they can remember. First, it's 5 to 9, and I would wager most people are on the lower end of that. But those 5 that you can't, they already have new things that they've learned today, fights that they're thinking about having with their spouse next week, or, there's just stuff going on. So trying to deliver value by overwhelming people with information will do just that. It will overwhelm them. And finally, apart from the fact that tactics are industry and context specific, and overwhelming people with value is not generous, right? It's selfish, it's overwhelming. On top of that, it's 2025. I can look up solutions all day long, right? Seth Godin, when he said to me, you get to choose your clients, he wasn't teaching me negotiating tactics. He wasn't giving me legal language for my contract. He wasn't giving me a pricing guide. He changed how I think about lead generation. Because if clients choose me, then I'm stuck with whoever comes through the door. But if I choose my clients, I take back control and I can create a business that I want. Now, how exactly do I choose my own clients? Well, at the moment he told me that, I didn't know exactly, but I can look it up now, right? Because I actually know what I'm looking for. So if solutions are not it, if tips and tricks and hacks and tactics are not how we create lasting change, what do we do instead? Well, before you provide solutions, first deliver a paradigm shift. Change how people think about the problem before offering them ways to solve it. What does a paradigm shift sound like? It sounds like it's not X, it's Y. Or from X to Y. And yes, if you're listening to this in 2025, 2026 at a time when AI chatbots are relatively new, or if they're still doing it, yes, this, it's not X, it's Y, sounds like ChatGPT. Don't use it in every sentence. The only reason that we're becoming allergic to that kind of language is because ChatGPT, AI-generated text, uses these contrasting statements in like every other sentence. Use it sparingly, like once per speech, right? Or once per big idea. I often encourage my clients to think about 15 to 20 minutes of stage time per one idea, right? So if you have 20 minutes, you get one idea. It's effectively a TED Talk. That's what it is. If you have half an hour, you get 2 big ideas. If you have an hour, you get 3 big ideas if you want. You don't have to, but you can. And so I'd say one paradigm shift per big idea. It's not X, it's Y. Or we need to move from X to Y. Or we need to stop doing X and start doing Y. Like these kinds of contrasting statements, what you're doing is you're indicating a shift in thinking. Paradigm shifts are context and cultural independent for the most part, right? Which means they stand the test of time. A new way of thinking 3,000 years ago is still a new way of thinking today. Like, don't think like this, think like this. The context of the world has changed, but the new way of thinking is the same. That's why people gain so much wisdom from really old texts, and things like Stoic philosophy are making a comeback, and existentialism are making a comeback. It's like, a lot of ancient spiritual practices for people are making a big comeback. It's because, the world was different. The technology of the day is different, but thinking isn't. The way we think through problems is still the way we think through problems. Like a new way of thinking will always be a new way of thinking. So paradigm shifts, they stand a test of time. They survive the external winds of change. If you have a new way of thinking about lead generation and LinkedIn changes their algorithm, your new way of thinking still works. You just need to update your tactics, even though you're using the same new way of thinking. Plus, and this is a huge bonus, paradigm shifts tend to be cross-disciplinary, which means if you discovered a way of thinking in your field, like I was a magician for 10 years, right? Full-time magician. I discovered ways of thinking in magic that I then pull into speeches that I now give when I'm in front of nurses. I sounded like a Muppet when I said that. Nurses. I pulled ways of thinking from magic into when I talk to nurses, or when I talk to accountants, or when I talk to, whoever. And that primary way of thinking that I pulled in is we need to stop having transactions and start having interactions. And I learned that as a magician when I realized that if you treat your audience as if they're a means to an end, just a way for you to get applause or a way for you to feel good or powerful, good about yourself or powerful. If you do that, you will not have as good a show. People will not connect with you. And I realized I need to stop treating my audiences as a transaction, as a way to get something, and instead be there with them, interact with them, connect with them. And so now, as a speaker on human connection, no matter what industry I go into, I can take a paradigm shift from magic, tell them stories from my career in magic that are interesting to them. They've never heard stories like that, and help them shift their thinking in their field. Cross-disciplinary shifts in thinking are beautiful because people never see them coming. So here are a couple of examples of paradigm shifts from clients we've worked with recently. Dr. Yasmin Saad, she's a psychologist out of New York City. She delivered an amazing, amazing TEDx talk called How to Make Sense of Our Negative Thoughts, or How to Make Sense of Your Negative Thoughts. That was chosen as an editor's pick. It just crossed 500,000 views at the recording of this video. We're very excited. Go Yasmin. Her big paradigm shift is negative thoughts are not enemies. They are messengers. Now, take a second to think about that. You haven't heard any of the rest of the speech. You don't know the context. Negative thoughts are not enemies. They're messengers. Did you start thinking differently right away, right? Because you go, okay, you immediately can go, if I have a negative thought, it's not an enemy. It's not there to get me. It's a messenger. Well, what do messengers do? Messengers relay information that might be useful to us. So maybe my negative thoughts actually contain useful information. Like, you haven't even heard her talk, and you can already start benefiting from a different way of thinking. Now, what do you actually do with those negative thoughts? Well, Yasmin goes on to offer you one or two tactics, things to do with them, but you can also start to get value from this simply from the different way of thinking. You now know what to look for. So here's the deal. If you're doing a workshop, you can build it around tactics, right? Workshops are for people who are where the attendees are going to do something new, learn something new, try something out. So like workshops are like, let's learn how to do these 3 new things. But keynote speeches are built around paradigm shifts. Here's a new way of thinking about this problem, a new way of thinking about our field, right? And so as a keynote speaker, you want to make sure that you're focused on paradigm shifts before you touch solutions. And then once you've changed their thinking, you've given them a whole new way to see the world. Now that they see the world differently, they will be looking for something to do. And that's where, in the very last portion of a keynote speech, only after you've successfully given them a paradigm shift can you deliver a solution, which often comes in the form of an action step. Just one thing, maybe 2 or 3, but like just one thing for them to try. And if they try it and it works, it will prove that this new way of thinking you offered them is valuable. That's all they need. One proof point. Give them something simple to try, something simple to do that will prove at this moment in time that your new way of thinking is valuable. Speaking of action steps, what should you do now? Okay. Take out a piece of paper, pull up a document, and make a list of all the solutions in your speech, all the hacks, the techniques, the tactics, the really practical stuff. List them all out. First, notice if you're overwhelming the audience. My guess is you are. You probably have a dozen of these things. But go through them and notice any common threads. Is there something that someone must believe, something that they must hold true in order to even try these things? Like, is there something that if they didn't believe this, that they wouldn't even be willing to try these new things? Okay, what do they currently believe that's holding them back? And then state your paradigm shift from that old belief to this new belief. It's not X, it's Y, or from X to Y. Or we think the problem is X, but the problem is really Y. State your paradigm shift as a contrasting statement and then deliver one of these per big idea. And listen, if you're someone who is trying to get paid to speak, like in the world of paid professional speaking, here's something for you. The larger the paradigm shift, the bigger the potential change. And the bigger the change, the higher the paycheck. That's the real secret to the paid speaking industry. So if you want to create lasting change, focus less on what they do and more on how they think. And I'll see you on the speaker path.